excited to host this webinar with Barb, who my hygienist in kindred spirit. We both have held that role at some point in our life, so we have a lot in common in that respect. But for those not familiar with Plan Forward, we are a dental membership software company serving dentists and patients in over 40 states across the country. Some housekeeping items. You will receive an email after today with a follow-up with the recording of the webinar. And Barb has graciously given us the first 2 chapters of her book. You can also find information. We'll send the links for the past webinars that we've done, because this is the second part in a series that Barb has done with us. So you'll have access to that as well. And please use the chat if you have questions. If something comes up along the way, Barb, you can correct me, but I think Barb likes to, answer the questions as they come up. Don't hold it till the last minute, but definitely, ask questions. Use the chat to ask questions, and then we will, pause and answer those questions. The more fun and interactive this is, the more everyone enjoys the whole process. So we definitely want to keep it like that. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Barb. Like I said, Barb is a hygienist by trade, but she also has a degree in educational leadership. And throughout her career, as she enjoyed many years in private practice as a hygienist, but that experience helped her to understand the stresses that come along with running a busy practice, as many of us know. Barb is also a very seasoned coach and consultant. She has honed her skills, and that eventually led her to putting on her entrepreneurial hat, where she is the founder and owner of More to Life Dental, where she lives out her passion for empowering dentists to take control of the financial and business side of their practices. So she loves taking what might seem complex to a lot of us and making it simple. So she likes to focus on teaching dentists the skills required for a highly profitable practice, and her profitability model utilizes the Profit First system. She's the author of Profit First for Dentists and supports entrepreneur dentists through her training and coaching programs. She also puts relationships and the success of others at the heart of all she does. And with all of that, on top of everything else, Barb is just a really nice person. So we really appreciate you being here, Barb, and floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Janelle. It is great to be here. I'm happy to share with all of you. I am going to share my screen, and I have a PowerPoint that I am going to start here. If you'll bear with me a second.
No worries.
And there we go. Can you all see that okay?
I can, yes. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Very good. So let me just start with talking a little bit about what is GAAP and what's this business equation. So GAAP stands for Generally Accepted Accounting Principles. And it was something that was formed in the 1920s by our government as a way to regulate CPAs and tax preparers in delivering information to the government for tax purposes. So unfortunately, from that, we have adopted this equation for businesses, and we have this embedded belief in us that this is the equation we have to use because it's what we use for tax purposes. Nothing wrong with it. It just doesn't always serve the business entrepreneur very well when we don't really understand it. We don't really know how much money we have. I mean, these are types of questions that I hear from dentists when I speak with them. And that equation is just this: sales. We produce dentistry. Our product is dentistry. It's a service we do. So we have to produce it, we have to collect the money. So that's sales. Minus all of the expenses. As you guys know, there are so many expenses. I always say there's a lot of moving parts going on. You got to pay your team, you might have associate doctors, you got to pay for your supplies, your lab, your phone bill, like all those things. And whatever happens to be left over is considered profit.
Well, I don't know about you, but in my world, I don't necessarily like waiting for the leftovers before I get paid. So using the profit first system is a system to help us shift that belief and that thinking. So I want to take just a few minutes here and just quickly go through some slides from the last training that I did. And then we are going to get into how to use this profit first model for debt reduction for other things. Okay. So what happens when we use that original formula, sales minus expenses equals profit, we get into this cycle of just, well, the only way to get out of this is got to sell more, got to produce more, got to collect more, got to have more sales. And we trick ourselves into believing that that's the way we're going to get ahead. That's how we're going to grow our practice. When in reality, there are other ways. Maybe that's not the problem. You know, maybe we have a different problem. Well, there was an SBA study done, and I don't remember the exact year. Hang on, I have some notes here. It was, I don't have the year written down, but what the SBA said was 83% of small businesses, and their definition of a small business is under 25 million in revenue. So probably most dental practices. But 83% of small businesses, dentistry and any other kind of business under 25 million, live paycheck to paycheck, meaning that we're always waiting for the next collections to come in because we have bills to pay. We're just not really getting ahead. So Mike Michalowicz wrote a book called Profit First, and I was very fortunate to be able to write the book Profit First for Dentists, and I am a Profit First professional, so I've studied with him. And what I've learned is instead of that old formula, the gap formula that was created for accountants, we can use a different formula as an entrepreneur. I don't know about you, but I don't like going and looking over profit and loss reports and balance sheets and all that to try to figure out what's going on. If we can just flip this equation, then we can create a system around it to help us know our numbers. And all we did was put profit first, hence the name, right? So sales minus profit, this is the pay yourself first model, equals expenses. Now, yes, we do have to have enough money to pay the bills. I agree. But what we have found is that the more money that is in the bank account, the more likely we are to spend it, and our expense costs go up. So this model is a way to change our behavior. We all have a behavior around online banking, and there's some similarities for most people, myself included. When I want to know how much money I have, if I'm going to pay the bills or whatever I'm going to do, if I'm going to spend some money, the first thing I do is I open my online banking and look at my accounts, because that's going to tell me how much money I have. And your accountant, your CPA tells you, don't ever look at your bank account, because that really doesn't tell you the truth. Because they know, oh, you've got to have so much for taxes, you've got to have so much for this, that, you've got some payroll liabilities out there, whatever, they're like, there's loans that have to be paid. So by looking at your bank account, it doesn't really tell you exactly how much cash you have. But if we look at our profit and loss report, it doesn't tell you either, because it shows you have a balance at the bottom, and it's like, I don't have that money in my account. Where is it? So this profit first method is designed to help us understand and change the way we look at our online banking. And how we do that is using some principles. And there's 4 principles. I'm going to go through them really quick. And this first webinar was recorded, so I'm repeating some of that. You can go back and watch and get all the details. But the small place principle just means that, imagine your bank accounts are like little plates or little buckets that you're putting cash into. And instead of having one bank account where all of your money flows in and flows out and flows in and flows out, we change that to where all the money flows into one account, but we don't pay the bills from that account. Instead, we allocate by percentage to 4 other accounts. And those accounts hold that money for a very specific purpose. And what we have found is our human behavior is such that if there is less money in the account, when we look at it, we will be more resourceful and more conservative. So we actually spend less money by dividing the money into these accounts. And you might think about this as like the old envelope system. So what are those accounts? Those small places. The income account, like I said, the money flows into the income account. That's like the serving tray of cash, right? Then the 4 other accounts are, we have a profit account that allows the owner to take a quarterly distribution. We'll talk more about that in a minute. We have an owner's compensation account used to pay the owner. So if you work in your business, you get paid for being a dentist, but the profit account pays you for being an entrepreneur. Then we have taxes, because we want to pay we want the business to pay the owner's taxes, and all of the other operating expenses is the 4th account. Now, one thing I want to just share with you real quick is this thing called the law of primacy, because this is the next principle. When things come first on a list, we are much more likely to do them, to check off. I don't know if you're a list maker, but I am. And when I make a list, I like to put the important things at the top, and I like to get those done, and I like to check them off. Well, that's the law of primacy. The things we put first in an order, in a sequence, are likely the things we're going to pay attention to. So the second, second principle, the first one is open those extra bank accounts. The second one is shift where we put profit, put it first, right? The equation flipped to sales minus profit equals expenses. So if you look at these 4 additional accounts, so we still have the main account where the money flows in, but now we have these 4 additional accounts. If you look at this, profit, owner's comp, and taxes are all benefiting the owner. Those could all be considered like the profit of the business in the tax accounting world. So think about it. If we move money to profit first, we allocate there, that's a reward for the owner. Then we move money to the owner's compensation account to pay the owner. That's a reward for the owner. Then we move money to the tax account. We're to protect the owner. And only then do we move money to the operating expenses account, which is going to serve your business. So for example, if $1,000 came in, and you were going to take a 1% of it and put it into a profit account, that's $10. You're probably not going to miss $10 out of every $1,000 that comes in. So I challenge you to just try that, if nothing else. The third principle is that once that money starts building up in that profit account and in that tax account, all of a sudden we get like googly eyed that there is money there. And let's say we have kind of a low month, a bad month. We don't have enough money coming in, and we have these bills to pay. And now you're seeing your operating expense getting a little bit low, not sure. And you go, oh, but I have money in my profit account. I have money in my tax account. I can just steal it from there. And I did say the word steal. It's not borrow. When you do that, when you take that money out of that account to use it for something else, you are actually stealing from yourself. So we do recommend for somebody who has that temptation to remove the temptation by moving that money to a second bank across town. And lastly, I want to talk about that we have to have a rhythm of how we do profit first. When you have the rhythm that you're following, it means you're making weekly allocations and transfers. That's our last shift or principle. When you have a really good month, what will happen is you'll build up a reserve in that profit account. And I teach my clients, part of that profit account, we do set it aside for a rainy day fund. You can have access to some of that. That's all designed by a plan. But on these really good months, you'll build up a reserve in your owner's comp. You'll build up a reserve in your taxes. You'll build up a reserve in your expense account. Then when you do have a month that is a little bit lower, you've got that reserve to fall back on. So by doing it by percentage, there's always enough because we're always allocating by percentage. So the quarterly rhythm is then when we take a profit distribution and it's celebration time. It's the time you get paid for being the entrepreneur. Typically, we would allocate or we would take a 50% distribution. But I want to talk to you today about, maybe doing some different things, especially if you have debt. And that's one of the things that, most dentists have some kind of debt. But that profit distribution, you need to remember, is for you as the entrepreneur, as the owner of this business, that the business is going to release some money to you. Now, one thing that I get a lot of questions about is, what about team? What about team bonuses? I don't like to do a bonus system. I like to say we can have team profit. And what that means is if we're going to have team profit, then we have to have profitability. And the team needs to understand, what is profitability? How do we have that? So there are certain things you can share with them. I'm not a proponent of sharing everything. I don't open up the books, everything, but there are certain things they do need to know. And you can have an account for profit for the doctor, but you can also have an account for profit for the team. And if we keep the expenses low and everyone's on board and we are efficient, hey, we can have a profit distribution for the team. But the key is you have to get your overhead in line first. So I do have some poll questions. I would love to have Janelle's going to share the poll question with you, and I would love to have you engage and answer, make a choice. These are multiple choice. And so I'm just curious, do you actually have a team bonus system in place? I know team members nowadays, this is something they're really asking a lot about. What is the money? What's my pay? Do you have a bonus system? These are all questions that team members are asking about. So do you have a team bonus system in place? Yes, it's based on production. Yes, it's based on collection, or yes, it's based on profit, or not yet. But I know my team would love this. And there is a way to do it, as I was saying, by using a profitability model rather than just rewarding for production or for collection. The problem with that is that the expenses might rise right along with it. And so you don't have true profitability to share. You're just sharing money based on production or collection, and you may not really have that cash. So I'd love to hear what are our numbers, Janelle? You are muted. Can you unmute?
Sorry, I'm muted because my husband decided today would be a good day to mow the yard. Sorry.
No worries.
I haven't seen any answers to the poll questions yet.
So if anybody is on, I know we do have some people logged in, so be brave, share with us. I would just love to hear. Typically I do find that offices many times do have a bonus system in place because team members have been asking about that before. I don't find very often that they're really truly based on a profitability model, or they'll tell me, I would like to reward my team. This is one thing I find with a lot of dentists. It's like, my team works hard. I do want to reward them. How can I do that? So maybe you don't have a system yet, but you would like to.
We did get one answer so far that it was no, not yet, but I know my team would love this.
Yeah.
Like you said, that's usually one of the ones.
Exactly. All right. One thing I just want to mention too is that true profitability is taken out of the business. So if you are all your profits, if you're thinking I have to plow back or reinvest all that money back into the business, you're actually negating that profit and that reward, and you increase your expenses by doing that. Your overhead actually goes up if you are always investing back into the business. Now, again, once you have that rainy day fund established and you have a solid, profit distribution system established, yes, you can reinvest, and I think that's a great thing to do. But we do it within the model of profit first. So remember, true profit is taken out of the business. It is a reward for the entrepreneur and the owner. So what about those allocation percentages? That's always like the big question. How do I make sure that my percentages are going to be correct? And in the book, which you're going to get the first two chapters of, but in the book, I do explain how to do all of that. That's kind of what I do as a coach and a consultant, for dentists who say, you know what, my time is best used being a dentist and, being at the chair and taking care of people. I need some help with this. Yeah, we can do a roll-up plan and lay that all out for you so you know what your percentages are. But I just wanted to share with you a little bit about what I have found over the last several years that I've been doing Profit First. I think I'm on 3.5 years now. I've been doing this using the Profit First model. I used some other models before that, but really since I've been introduced to this has been a game changer for my clients. And so I've been collecting data during that time and tracking numbers and, what are my clients doing? What are the averages? And so I put the range on here. And I will say that the majority of my practices are 3 million and under. I do have a few over, but I categorize this so that these are all practices that are 3 million and under. So the real revenue obviously is 100% of the cash that comes in. Their distributions to profit range from 1%, which everyone starts at 1, and then we work up from there. And I have some doing 20. The average percent, though, that the majority of my doctors are doing, the average is 6%. The owner's compensation can be anywhere from 12 to 25. The average I find is around 17. And again, this is your take-home pay. This is, this doesn't have taxes further taken out of it, right? This is what you get to take home. The tax is somewhere in the 7 to 15% range. The average is about 10% of those gross receipts, the collection. So don't think, oh, I'm in a tax bracket of 30 or 33% or 35% or whatever that is. That's the government talking. That's over there in that other equation. We're now talking about out of all the money that comes into your practice, your receipts, your gross receipts, your collection, 10% of that goes to pay your taxes. And then your operating expenses, I see a range from 55 to 75. And average is about 67%. That's where we like to get to. And I will tell you, I have had some dentists coming on board who've been in about the 80% overhead range. Now, when I talk about overhead, I'm talking about all cash that's going out of the business. And that includes making loan payments. So you're not going to see those on your profit and loss report, which is why when you look at the bottom line and it says, I have all this money, doesn't include all of your loan payments. So if you do have a practice loan or some equipment loans, those payments still have to come out of that money. So let's talk about debt. When you have debt, it can keep you from doing the things that you really want to do. And you might be saying things like, when my debt is paid down, I will have money to do whatever, save for retirement, save for my kids' education, pay myself what I'm really worth, take that vacation I want to take, or, start paying taxes without borrowing the money, or be able to pay my credit cards off. But it's always this, when I don't have debt, I'm working on paying down debt. And I've seen doctors plow back into their practice a lot of money to pay down debt. Now, nothing wrong with that if you have created a plan for that. What can happen is there's this phantom tax when you pay down debt. There's an interest part of the payment and there's a principal part of the payment. The principal part of the payment, the government says, oh, that's income to you. You're building equity in your business and you have to pay tax on that. So the more debt you pay down, actually, the higher your taxes at the end of the year, which is crazy. But it works that way. And so again, I say, as long as you have a plan and you have discussed that plan with your bookkeeper, your CPA, your coach, your financial coach, whoever, and you know what you're doing, absolutely you can do that. But if debt is keeping you from doing these other things, I'm here to tell you, you can create a structure and a plan with your money that you can do all of these things. It's a both and, it's not an either or. You can pay down debt and you can do these other things, but you have to have a plan in place to do it. Know where your money is going and for what purpose. I love this quote from Susan Orr. Some people don't. I think her personality is a little odd, but I do love her stuff that she does. She's spot on a lot of times, and I like this quote. She says, if you want to get out of debt, you must get more enjoyment out of saving your money than you do in spending your money. We get a dopamine response when we spend money, we buy some, we make a purchase. That thing that we bought gives us some pleasure. And so we get this dopamine or this high from spending. So most of us do the opposite. Most of us spend more than we save. And she is saying you have to learn to have enjoyment in saving your money rather than spending. So with debt, it's this pain and pleasure thing. So the debt, a little bit, doesn't really give you too much. It's hardly noticeable. But what happens is that debt that you have pays for something that produces a pleasure for you. So this is so typical in dentistry. We see, the next shiny object that we need to have. We go to the show, we go to the conference, and we want to have that. We take out, they say, oh, you can borrow the money. We've got it right here. You take out a loan and you're like, oh, it's only this much per month. It's not too much pain, but I have this pleasure of having this equipment and I'm going to be able to use this, so you have this emotion. It's this mixed emotion that is happening. And that's why I say debt can be sneaky. What we want to do is make those profit deposits and profit distributions be very pleasurable. And so now we're enforcing that emotion of pleasure around saving. So we all want to avoid pain. We all want to move towards pleasure. So just a little of the psychology about money and debt. The bottom line is you got to give yourself more joy when you choose not to spend money than you do when you choose to spend it. And you have to give yourself more joy when your bottom line grows, not just the top line. It's not about just what you produced. It's about the profitability. And you have to give yourself tons of joy when your profit percentage grows. And every time you save, Mike Michalowicz says, do the happy dance. So the thing to consider is your best month or your worst month. And you all know in dentistry, we have, these waves, right? We have really good months and sometimes we'll be on a wave for a while and then the bottom drops out. We have a lower month and holidays, whatever, back to school. I hear all kinds of reasons why this happens in dentistry. It happens in other businesses too. But if you think about your belief around this, we believe our recent best month is now the norm. And so we begin to run our business on this best month number. And then we start to panic when we have a short month. So the best way to do this is to go back and look from your previous 12-month average and look at those monthly trends. And honestly, I would tell you, and Mike Michalowicz would tell you, pick your worst 3 months from the last 12. Pick your worst 3 months, build your budget on that, build your spending on that. And then when you have those months that are better, gravy, you're on the gravy train. You got extra now you can put in your profit account. Remember that a budget and projections are just opinion. Cash is fact. So that's why we do these percentage allocations. That's why we actually take the percentage, we figure it out what it is, and we actually transfer that money to an account because now that's fact. We've moved the money. This is what it's for. Remember that quarterly rhythm. Once we're in this, we're going to be able to take that profit distribution at the end of every quarter, and there's going to be this celebration time. But in order to do all of this, you do have to have a plan for reducing the operating expenses, and you have to know what your operating expenses truly are. And this allows you to begin increasing your profit allocation. Well, how do you do that? The first thing is you want to make sure you know what your chart of accounts is. Get it organized so you can know your numbers. So I like to group things together. Obviously, team payroll could be a category, and most chart of accounts, that is a category, right? Dental supplies can be a category. Laboratory expenses, dental lab can be a category. Marketing can be a category. We can have just business administrative things. That's a big category. There's a lot of things that fall under business expenses. So all about getting organized so you can know your numbers. You have to know your numbers if you expect to reduce expenses, because otherwise you're just always grasping at straws. Well, I think it's this, I think it's this, I think it's this. But if you don't really know your percentages in each of those categories, then you don't really know where to start. And what I want to show you here is just, this is a way to organize your chart of accounts into some major, like, fixed expenses over here and variable expenses over here. So your fixed expenses, what that means is those expenses typically stay about the same from month to month. So your team compensation doesn't change a whole lot. Like, you know, your team is still there working. Whether your production and collections goes up or down, we still are paying our team to be there. Your occupancy, this is your rent, your utilities, those tend to be pretty similar month to month. And then your equipment and your loan payments all get grouped in to the next. And that's, again, that's a fixed expense. And the recommendation is that you should not go over 40% in your fixed expenses. So 30 to 40%, obviously the lower the better. Your variable expenses then are the things that do fluctuate. So when your production goes up and your collection goes up, it makes sense. You're going to spend more on supplies if you're doing more dentistry. If it goes down, if your production goes down, you're going to spend less on these things, supplies, lab. Marketing can be, so there can be some fixed expenses with that too. And same with business admin and other. There's part variable, you know, and part fixed expenses, but we keep it in the variable category because when you want to reduce your expenses, the number one place you go is you look at your variable expenses, because that's the easiest place to change. It's easy to look at your dental supplies and start shopping around. You know, it's easy to look at your lab and see what you're paying for different lab fees and maybe start negotiating some things. So you have to decide, do I have a production problem or do I have a spending problem? Or maybe you have both. Typically, if your fixed expenses are too high, they're over that 40%, then you have a production problem. If your variable expenses start getting out of hand, then we usually say that's a spending problem. But it can be a combination of both. These are just little tips to help you to look at your money and see what is going on. And having a coach that has done these things helps you as well to see things from a different way. Nobody likes the word budget, but however, you know, we all want to live, you know, with knowing what our numbers are and do I really have the money or not? And the only way to know that is to create a budget. Well, I like to call it a spending plan. So the truth is, we are all going to spend money in our business. Let's just keep this business. I mean, we will in our personal life too, but in the business, we know there are expenses. We just covered that. And so I say, why not have a spending plan? If you know you're going to spend money on these things, let's have a plan for what percentage we're going to be spending. So I have a second poll question, and Janelle's going to put that up. And what I'm looking for here is, we've just been talking about organizing your finances and creating this budget or this spending plan. So how organized are your finances? You can answer, I have a budget and I follow it very carefully. Yay, if you do, that's awesome. I have a budget, but I have no idea how to make it happen. So maybe someone has helped you to create this, but you're like, yeah, I don't know how to make it happen. I don't know what my reality is. Or I do not have a budget yet, or there's a budget. Sometimes we don't even know where to begin. So if you'll be honest and just put your answer in there, I would love to hear from you. So please just go ahead and take a moment here.
It looks like the majority is, I have a budget, but I have no idea how to make it happen.
That is very, very typical. Yep, which is why we're talking about this today. So, all right, well, thank you for participating. Any more coming in?
No, not yet.
I'll let you close it then if everyone is done. All right, perfect, thanks. Let me get here. Okay, there we go. One thing I want to share with you, just so you understand this, number one determinant of practice value is cash flow. It's profitability. The more cash that is free at the end of the month, the profit, the more profit you have, the higher the value of your practice. Now, why is this? Because if someone is going to come and purchase your practice, let's say your debt's all paid off. You get to the point the debt's paid off, your profitability has gone up, you're really managing things well. We have a new person coming who wants to purchase that practice. They're going to go in debt to make that purchase. The bank is going to look and see, is there enough profitability for this person to cover their debt payment and to live? Is there enough there for living expenses for this owner? So the number one determinant of practice value is profit. So why not start out from a profitability model? One of the questions I get asked a lot about profit first is, but will this work for me? That's what we're all asking ourselves. Okay, that all sounds great, but really, is it going to work for me? And I would tell you, this isn't just about dentistry. I happen to only work with dentists, but I'm only one profit first professional. There are about, 700 of us, 800 of us worldwide who work with all kinds of businesses. So I know profit first works for all types of businesses, big and small. I don't know if you've ever heard of the baseball team, the Savannah Bananas in Savannah, Georgia. They are a farm team. They operate their entire baseball program. Their whole company is operated off of profit first. And I do know that it works for dentists too, no matter what size your practice is. We make modifications for things that need to be modified. So everyone is unique. There's no two practices exactly the same. So I give you all the basics in the book, but sometimes there's just these extra things. So I want to share a couple of case studies with you real quick so you can just see some of my past clients who have graduated from my program. I do call it an educational program. I want to teach you. I want to let go of your hand at the end of it. So I'm confident that you know what you're doing and you have your systems all set up. And honestly, in as little as 10 minutes a week and about an hour a month, you can know your numbers 100% for sure. It's just all about getting them organized and understanding this profit first system. So this is a practice here. She's in it's a female dentist. She's in a large metro area, and she was a scratch start practice. And when she came to me, she was about 1 year into that scratch start practice. She told me she had not been paying herself regularly, very rarely was able to take any money out of the business. And so you can see her operating expenses were at 93%. Now, to be fair, she was growing, so she was still continuing to grow as she worked with me, but we changed those percentages tremendously. And 4 months in, so 4 months, this didn't take a long time to do. She was at her 1%. She upped it in month 5 and 6. I think she ended up being like maybe 3%. But after 4 months, she was solid 1% in profit. She was paying herself 11%. She was setting aside 6% for taxes, and she had her operating expenses down to 74%. And again, she was ready to increase her profit distribution. This is a dentist who 20 years in practice, he was already doing well. In fact, I had worked with him years prior, and he had some good systems. He was doing quite well, but he called me and he said, I still don't have a handle on this money thing. And he said, I know you're doing something different. I want to do this profit first thing. And so, his initial assessment that I did, he was already setting his 5.7% profit. Most dentists would be pretty darn happy with that. Paying himself 26.8%, tax 9.2%, and he had an operating expense of 58%. Like when he came, I'm like, I don't know. Like, am I going to really be able to help him do better? Well, turns out this behavioral system of going in, making the allocations based on the percentages and transferring that money really does work. It is a behavioral system. And when you take action and you do it, it works. And so he ended up, he's been doing Profit First now for 2.5 years. And he ended up getting his profit up to 20%. His owner's account 20%. And remember that profit account that quarterly distributions, he's taking 50% of that for a quarterly distribution, right? His tax stayed about the same, but his operating expense went down to 50.5%. So pretty awesome what he was able to do. This practice, again, is a startup, but it purchased a first practice and then was, it was from an older dentist who, as we all know, a lot of times those are sort of starting to decline. So it was kind of like building a practice too, and it was a smaller practice. So she was 2 years in to this first practice that was purchased, and profitability was 0, owner's comp 8, tax 5%, and operating expense 87%. 6 months later, we had profit at 4%, owner's comp at 16%. Remember, owner's comp is what you take home. Taxes at 8%, that's the owner's taxes, and operating expense at 69%. And I will tell you, she actually saved the money and bought a second practice and merged that in with this practice. So some really cool things happening. This last one is, he was in practice 15 years when he came to me. And he is also in a little bit of a larger city, not like a huge metro area, but good size. And his initial assessment was he wasn't putting anything away in profit. His owner's comp was 19%, his tax was 6%, and he was spending 75% on his operating expense. 6 months later, he was still at 1% for his profit, which I really challenged him because he had upped his owner's comp. And I said, why don't you keep your owner's comp the same? You'll spend less at home and then take those profit distributions. And he actually ended up doing that kind of right at the end when we were working, kind of finishing up. So he did reach out to me later and said, he had made some commitments and had changed that. But as he ended up at the 6 months, this is where he was. 7% taxes, but he had reduced his operating expense to 68%. The point in all of this is when you pay attention to these things, they will change. These numbers will change for the better when you start paying attention and you have a plan. Well, how soon does it take results? Once your bank accounts are set up, once you know your allocations and your percentages, results can start with the very next deposit, because it's the money that's deposited in your bank. You're using that and allocating. In dentistry, we do that once a week. What about using Profit First at home? I get asked this a lot, and I think this is something really good for dentists and team members. And this is Dave Ramsey's budget category recommendations, and this comes right off of his website. You can go and look at it. But I said, okay, well, what does that look like if I divided that up into categories for an at-home budget? And what if we took our income at home, and we put that and allocated it into some different accounts? And here's what I came up with. 10% savings, 10% charity, 65% home expenses, and 15% for vacation, personal, and fun. And you can go back and you can look at each of these different areas and put those into one of those categories that I just shared. So you can do this. I personally have dentists who are doing this with their home finances as well, and have found it's very helpful. I want to share with you just a little bit about this. This is a pyramid or an ascension model of business for dentistry. And one of the things that I find is, dentists come to me and they're like, I need to improve my technical skills, or I need to improve my leadership skills. I want to take my team and do this training, and we need to be more efficient. But the truth is that the very first thing that needs to happen is you've got to get fiscally healthy. If you can't get your money organized on what you have now, just adding more production and just, doing all these other things isn't gonna make you have the profitability that you think. You have to get the money organized. And this is fashioned after Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Maslow said people in survival couldn't think about things, at the higher levels. And same is true, it turns out, in our business. We have to take care of the things that are survival. Cash is like oxygen to a business. We have to have cash flow. So get the financial health in line, and then the time and the organization and the team training, all those things that you go and do, they're going to stick. They're going to stay. They're going to last. And then you can start working on those things at the higher levels. So really the foundation, like I said, is the finances. It's about money. It's about building that wealth and having a thinking, a belief of abundance. Have a structure, have a system for your money, and make sure it is simple to follow. When it's complex, like you get from a CPA, you don't do it and you don't understand it. So have something that is simple that you can do 10 minutes a week, an hour a month, whatever it is. Make sure that you know your money. You know, we know that doing what you've always done and expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. And that is true. And, you know, with our money as well. So I want to thank you for being here. And I just want to say to you, you have a choice. You can stay where you're at. And if you're happy with your profitability and everything is great, then I say, you know, go for it. Stay where you are. But if you're looking for a simple system, you want to learn more about this, I would love for you to read those first couple of chapters that you're going to get as a gift from me and from Plan Forward. And, you know, and I'd love for you to read my whole book. So, you know, please reach out if you have any questions. I put my contact information. I would love to have a conversation with you if that's appropriate for you. You can just ask me some questions. I'm totally open. I will help you in any way that I can. You know, if it is something that you're looking for help in the way of coaching and consulting, we can talk about that, but that's not what this call is. This is if you want to book a call with me and you just have some questions about Profit First, you've read the book, you've tried it, and you're like, hey, I just need to know this. Sure, call me. I will make sure you have the answers to that. So you can book that call at call.barbstackhouse.com, or you can email me at barb@barbstackhouse.com as well. So I would love to hear from you. Janelle, I'm going to let you close it out. These are some things that Plan Forward has coming up, and she wants to share with you. Again, thank you for being here. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Barb. We really appreciate you being here. And just for our clients who are on today, we obviously have open enrollment is going to be here before we know it. Obviously, it's getting close to almost time to go back to school, which my son's dreading. But we are getting closer and closer to open enrollment. So we are going to start early and get everyone prepared with a webinar. Our next webinar on August 3rd for our clients only will be on getting ready for that open enrollment. And then we have some really great experts coming up. So we have some great hygienists who are going to talk to us about having better perio conversations. We have the 2022 Dentrix Trainer of the Year, Dana Johnson. She's a wonderful person. So if you're a Dentrix user, definitely sign up for that webinar because she's going to give us a wealth of knowledge about how to kind of work with your membership plan within Dentrix. We did the same one with Andre Sheridan from Eaglesoft. So we are trying to help, you know, everyone kind of understand how to work, you know, with your membership plans and your practice management software. That's probably one of the number one questions that we get on that. And then, of course, the amazing Tia Hunter will be with us. She's going to talk to us about best practices in documentation and sterilization. And then Lynn Leggett's going to join us and talk about change management. So we have a lot of great stuff coming up. So definitely reach out to us and get more information and sign up for those webinars. And Barb, we just really appreciate you being here. All of your knowledge is incredible. We appreciate you sharing it with us. And I hope that everybody you know, reads your book and reaches out to you and works with you to get that profit first in place.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me and sponsoring this. And I am a big support person of Plan Forward. A lot of my clients are using Plan Forward. I love it. It's the best out there. I've looked at other ones. So if you're listening to this and you're not using Plan Forward yet, I encourage you to do that. And it fits very, very well with what I do with Profit First and really helping you with cash flow. So thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Love being, you know, partnered with you guys and just anything I can do to help, I'm here.
Thank you, Barb. We appreciate it. We appreciate your support and your kind words. And we love the support that you give to Plan Forward. And we appreciate you being here. So thank you so much again for your time today. And everybody have an amazing rest of your Friday and an excellent weekend. Thanks, everybody. Take care.